Another Boeing whistleblower has tragically passed away. The second death comes just weeks after the suicide of another whistleblower. The individual suffered a very brief illness, which resulted in his passing. Joshua Dean, who's 45, of Wichita, Kansas, died Tuesday after he received multiple diagnoses that included the flu, pneumonia, and MRSA. Dean had been sick for 2 weeks and had been struggling to breathe, forcing him to be put on a ventilator. Joshua's short illness has prompted his family to seek an autopsy. The family's attorney, Robert Turkowitz, expressed that Joshua was a healthy individual who ate well and exercised. His mother stated, "This was his first time ever in a hospital. He didn't even have a doctor because he never was sick." Dean worked as a quality auditor at Spirit. He had raised quality issues in manufacturing the 737 MAX. Dean was one of the first to flag potentially dangerous defects with 737 MAX jets at Spirit AeroSystems, a major Boeing supplier that was spun off from the plane maker in 2005. Dean took that job seriously and grew increasingly frustrated with what he described as a culture of not counting defects correctly at Spirit. During 2 interviews in January, Dean said that Spirit pressured employees not to report defects in order to get planes out of the factory faster. Dean eventually got canned for pointing out that there was a bunch of holes drilled into planes where holes shouldn't be drilled. Dean was let go from what he called an act of retaliation. Tragically, Dean is the second Boeing-related whistleblower to die in the past 3 months. In March, John Barnett, 62, died in Charleston, South Carolina, from what appears to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. At the time, Barnett had been testifying in his retaliation lawsuit against Boeing. Police in Charleston say they're investigating his death. At the time of his death, Barnett was due to wrap up his final day of depositions ahead of a June trial date in a whistleblower case he filed against Boeing in 2017, alleging the company retaliated against him for raising concerns about production issues. Barnett was testifying about potentially catastrophic safety failings with the 787 Dreamliner. A friend claimed Barnett had speculated to her that he might end up dead after he started speaking out publicly about his Boeing-related safety concerns. "No, I ain't scared, but if anything happens to me, it's not suicide." Now, Jake, these seem to be different cases, but what do you make of this most recent one?
Man, this one is super weird because it's not at all clear cut. There are other ones that are more obvious. So, the most legendary one is Jeffrey Epstein. And on that one, the guy knows all sorts of information about some of the top people in the world, the worst information you could possibly have. He winds up conveniently dead in jail. And I said at the time, it depends. Does the video camera in the hallway work or not work? If it doesn't work, they killed him, right? And we found out later, oh, look at that. The guards were not there and the camera was not working. All right, brothers. Okay, number 2, the Russian journalists that keep tripping out of windows, or politicians that disagree with Putin who somehow have bathtubs fall on their heads, or commit suicide by shooting themselves in the head and heart, right? Those are less likely to be true. Those are theories that make sense that, yeah, something wrong. By the way, there's tons of them. Also against the Russians, Nord Stream blows up. Oh, the Russians blew up their own pipeline. Did they? Less likely. I'll go there. Wuhan virus lab. A virus breaks out right next to it, but it wasn't the lab. You sure? Right? So some things are clearer than others, in my opinion. This one is not at all clear. Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you. So on the one hand, you have super weird deaths. Guy says it's definitely not suicide and then commits suicide, we think, right? They're both about Boeing. Boeing has had massive problems on these safety issues on the planes. They're both whistleblowers. They both die under mysterious circumstances. You're thinking it's pretty obvious, but it isn't, because it makes no sense. So if there was a company where there's an individual owner and he's either going to be, say worth $4 billion or nothing based on these whistleblowers, okay, now you've got a motive, right? But for any particular shareholder of Boeing or an executive of Boeing, it makes no sense at all, because oh, your bonus is going to be 10 million instead of 12 million. That's not reason enough to kill anyone. your share price is gonna be this versus that. That's not enough reason to kill anyone. It doesn't make any sense, right? So I don't know who would have the motive within Boeing. There doesn't seem to be a connection to a nefarious like foreign actor. Like, could the Russians do something like this? When a young, healthy person all of a sudden falls ill, that's usually a Russian MO for poisoning, etc. We've seen that in the past, but Boeing's got nothing to do with the Russians. So as far as we know, so it doesn't make sense. And I have no idea what actually happened. Woz, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that, we have a smoking gun here of any kind in either case. I don't see how the facts don't really support that right now. However, I think this just goes as part of the myth and the lore around why folks don't speak out or step up. It's not just that these extremely huge entities, corporations can bury you in court with their tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars and lawyers that they have on retainers. So not only can they use the system to bury you and then do all kinds of retaliation tactics on you while you're at the job. I don't know why anybody would think that extremely rich people can't get you killed, right? Maybe they didn't do that in this instance, but that has to be in somebody's mind when they do see something wrong and they do want to speak up, when they're weighing the pros and the cons of putting themselves in between that crossfire. And I think cases like this, whether it's credible or not, it's not going to help the next whistleblower want to do, that brave thing.
Yeah, so just to back that up and tie it to this, so the last guy that Jordan told you about, 4 years for a whistleblower complaint, that is preposterously long. And so that's an issue that doesn't involve any theories. That's just like, that's actually how business crushes anyone who's powerless and a whistleblower. They have an army of lawyers and they just drag it out and drag it out. Meanwhile, you're having to pay your lawyers, your life is ruined. And so that's corporate power and that's the corporate rule we all live under. But again, in the middle of his deposition, after all those long years, he's about to testify in the last part, and then the guy who says he won't commits suicide. Man, that's a strange story. Last thing I'll say on it is, if there is some sort of conspiracy on this, which we don't have anywhere near enough evidence on, I just want to be super clear about that, right? But if there is, it isn't about normal safety violations. Then there's something else we don't know. Because these normal safety violations, as terrible as they are, there's no way anybody would get killed over them because they're whistleblowing. Because look, Boeing's already passed it. All they got to do is give campaign contributions to the politicians. There's not going to be any accountability. It would make it much worse if you killed these people for no reason. So that just doesn't make sense unless there's something unseen that is way worse than we know.
Yeah, that's the thing. There could be something unseen. If this is somehow, at least with the first one, the suicide, they were behind it. That's got to be the motive, right? And you're talking about, their bonuses could be different, but there was already a sense of consumer panic with all of these videos. There were sites that were assembled where you could check and see your flight, your upcoming flights, what plane you would be on, so people would rebook. They had new protocols for airlines if you didn't want to be on these planes. So long-term projections, it could be bad for Boeing. It's a government contractor as well. We don't know what other technologies or sales or pending sales to different aspects of the military they were hoping to achieve. So there are myriad different possibilities here that they could be concerned with. But like I said, if the first one, they were behind it, it is to send a signal to everybody else, say, shut up. This is your fate, don't mess around. You didn't see anything. It's an intimidation tactic, and unfortunately we have a lot of that in legal proceedings these days.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.